Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Dalvin Cook is now in the NFL. He's back. He's back in the NFL with the team. Ezekiel Elliott, he's back in the NFL with a team. But their contracts don't really match up. Is there something that we don't know about Dalvin's contract that maybe looks a little bit more like Zeke's, but everybody's trying to talk it up like it's a bigger deal than it is? And we also sit down with Greg Coleman. He's going to tell us some stories about Bud Grant that you have not heard before and you're going to want to hear. But also, he's a little pissed off about special teams and the changes the NFL continues to make. We'll do that next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson. This is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Looking forward to today's show because we have Greg Coleman joining me in the Hang on Ron Johnson segment. Viking great, one of the first black punters in the NFL. But more importantly, Bud Grant passed away this year, and the team is going to honor Bud throughout the year. Today is Greg Coleman's golf tournament, and they are doing something special. A 1 of 12. There are 12 of these. They're going to auction it off. So if you want to be a part of this auction to get this Bud Grant limited edition, it's like a jersey and something else he signed, but you can go on ymcanorth.org, or you can Google the Greg Coleman golf tournament and it'll take you to the YMCA site as well. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a link there. You can see the auction live as the golf tournament goes on. We're going to golf in about an hour or so. It's going to go on to about 5 o'clock. You're going to have John Randall McDaniel, some great guys out there. But I got a chance to sit down with Greg Coleman, and I'm excited to let you guys hear that one coming up in the Hang Around Johnson segment. But I want you guys to know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Just visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. It's going to make every moment more, people. And football is getting closer and closer and closer. So you want to make sure you get down on some of these early parlays. Like I said, Danielle Hunter, 10 plus sacks, over under, jump on it. It's going to make every defensive snap more important to you. Every time Danielle gets a sack and he cuts the door down, it's going to make you a little bit more excited because the money's coming your way. But as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, got to get started in this because today is one of those days. Like I went to sleep and I'm like, today is a day. Today's the day. That's a song from a show that I know Sam's never watched. I have to see the clip, though. It's a hilarious clip of this guy on a movie. It was Eve the rapper. She had a TV show way back when, which you probably don't remember. It was a couple years ago, years and years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And there was a guy that was singing a song, and it was called Today's the Day. And it was like this nice, uplifting song. And then he sold his rights, to a rapper. And the rapper turned it into like a song for political whatever. Like he was talking about like taking out the taking guns to the streets and taking their streets back and blah blah. And the dude's like, every time he starts rapping, the singer gets like scared. Like the song's supposed to be nice and uplifting, and then like super funny though, because he did not know that's the direction the guy was going to go with the song. That today is the day, because it was supposed to be like a nice uplifting song. So that was in my head. Today's the day. Today's the day to talk about running back, Sam. Dalvin Cook is now a New York Jet, and I said this on June 23rd. I also said this on the Pat McAfee show. And of course, I'm not Adam Schefter. I'm not Ian Rappaport. So nobody really, I had one like on that tweet, Sam. I had one like when I said Dalvin Cook to the Jets is the best marriage, I think, out there in the NFL.
Yep,
nobody liked it. Nobody, I had one like. Nobody retweeted it. Wasn't a big deal. Nobody thought it could happen. Yeah, right. Dalvin Cook should go there. This is not going to work. They already have Breece Hall. They got Aaron Rodgers. They can't afford Dalvin Cook. I said Dalvin Cook is the best fit. Nobody. Then all of a sudden, Tyler Conklin. So look at the timeline. Tyler Conklin goes on Good Morning Football and pitches to Dalvin Cook. So then everybody's like, wait a minute. This Dalvin Cook to Jets might be for real. I heard Ron Johnson on the Pat McAfee show, but I don't believe him. He's just a Vikings guy. He loves the Vikings. But then Conklin does it. Then Pat McAfee does it. Then Dalvin Cook tweets it. Then he shows up to hey, I said this back in June. I said Dalvin Cook to the Jets was the best marriage possible. Aaron Rodgers and Dalvin Cook, former foes, Packers, Vikings, are now teammates. Breece Hall coming off an ACL. Why not go get you a healthy back that you know week 1 is going to give you everything that you need in case Breece Hall is not 100% ready to go? They now have that in Dalvin Cook. They now have receivers that are ridiculously good. You have Allen Lazard. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Aaron Rodgers, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback. You got a decent offensive line, but better yet, you have Sauce Gardner, and you have that defense with Quinnen Williams that is one of the best defenses in the NFL as far as talent on paper champions. It's there in New York. Huge market, though. Hard Knocks is there. So now Dalvin Cook might even – so there might be some Hard Knocks episodes of Dalvin Cook that maybe they were keeping under wraps and was already ready to go. Like Dalvin probably saying, I want to be a Jet. Dalvin probably saying, I'm ready to sign. Maybe they did sign him and they were just going back and forth on the money because clearly up to $8.6 million was the key.
Yeah.
It's not $8.6 million. But Zeke, as you pointed out, how much did he sign for, Sam?
So I'm seeing $3 million base salary and incentives up to $6 million. That's what I'm seeing on Zeke. So
max
Dalvin,
6.
Yeah, max 6. So Dalvin's got a lot more potential money, but again, what are those incentives? Is it 1,500 yards? Is it 1,000 yards? Is it, winning a playoff game? Is it 10 touchdowns? We don't know what that is, but I'm guessing the base, Ron, is probably in that 5 range. That's just a guess.
So here's where I go with this, Sam. If it is in the 5 range, because Zeke's is 3 and 6 bonuses, 5 range, maybe 6, up to 8.6, which means you're right, 1,500 yards, maybe 15 touchdowns or something like that, or 10 touchdowns, or first round playoff win, second round playoff win. That always is in there. There is a Super Bowl in there, I'm pretty sure. So that he's not going to get that. So he's not going to get the 8.6. I'm pretty, because I know, so maybe they didn't do this because he's a running back. But I know quarterbacks, that's always in there as an incentive. Win first round, win second round, win divisional round, divisional round, conference, and then win the Super Bowl. Like they always throw all that kind of stuff in there. Win your division, win the divisional round playoffs, win the conference championship, and then you won a Super Bowl. Here's all your escalators. If they did do that to Dalvin Cook, they won. Because if they win a Super Bowl, great. Here's the money. We won a Super Bowl. We're in New York. We are about to have all the sponsors come after us because we are better than the Giants. The Giants were always New York's team. The Jets are in like Jersey anyway. They were never New York's team. But if Aaron Rodgers wins a Super Bowl, he's all over New York. New York will be painted green. It will be painted green. The Giants will be an afterthought. Daniel Jones will be a stepchild, which he probably already is. And it will be green. But Dalvin Cook, the Jets won because they're like, look, we got you to win the Super Bowl. You won a Super Bowl. We'll pay you this money. Here's your $8.6 million. But if they don't, maybe it looks like 7. So then my answer is, or my question, Sam, if the Vikings, and this is a Boomer Esiason rumor, because I've been tweeting this and people are like, where did you hear that? Boomer Esiason said this, that the Vikings offered him $7 million. I have a thought about that, though. Was this his agent leaking that? Because we know he's very sneaky with how he words stuff. He's very sneaky. Him and Dalvin has been throwing subliminal bombs out on Twitter all the time. Here's tweets. Here's this. So did he leak that? And it wasn't really true because the Vikings can't confirm. They can't come back and say, no, we didn't offer him 7, man. He's lying. Just for other teams to know, if you want my guy, you got to come up with a package better than 7 because we didn't take 7 from the Vikings. So you got to come up with a package better than 7. If he did that and it worked out, more power to him. Great job because you did your job. You got exactly what Dalvin Cook wanted, was more than 7. But if it was a base, like you're saying, a 5 or 6, and he doesn't hit any of those, like Breece Hall kills it, and it's a running back by committee, Dalvin Cook's the third down back, catch and swing. And that's the thing, Dalvin Cook was never really a true third down back anyway. So that's the one thing that's perplexing to me is he's a 1-2 back. Third down was never his thing because he doesn't, not say he can't block, but it was always like Alexander Madison would come in for some of those passing plays where he would be the blocking back, or CJ Ham. So that to me as well, like, but maybe they're not a running team on third down anyway. Maybe if they're a passing team on third down, Dalvin Cook is actually in the route tree. But it'll be very interesting if he doesn't hit that much. Like if once these numbers come out and he doesn't hit that number and it is actually lower than 7. And again, maybe the Vikings only offered him 5 with incentives up to 7. Maybe that was the deal. And maybe the Jets say, okay, we'll give you 5, but our incentives will take you to 8.6. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? But for Zeke to be offered 3, max 6, one, when I was saying Dalvin Cook was better than Zeke, there's the proof in the pudding. People were like, proof is in the pudding. I said that before.
Yeah.
When I was ranking running backs, I said Dalvin's better. I said that when all the free agents came out. Remember, we had the show. You can go back. People can go back and watch the show. I don't just make stuff up. When we did the show and you asked me about running backs on the deal, I said I thought Dalvin was the best option out there regardless. I said he's better than Zeke to me. He's better than Kareem Hunt to me. He's better than whoever else was out there, but he's better than all of them to me. I said Jonathan Taylor is a different type of back, but I would even take Dalvin over Josh Jacobs only for the simple fact of it depends on, and I said depends on what team he goes to. The Jets are not going to run the ball like Josh Jacobs can do. The Vikings aren't going to run the ball, even though they say they want to, like Josh Jacobs can do. They want somebody who's versatile, and that's why they kept, clearly keeping Alexander Madison showed how versatile this offense is going to be. But Sam, when you look at now Dalvin Cook signing for that, you look at Zeke signing for that. These rest of these running backs now are really like, I don't know what that Zoom call was about, but I don't feel like it was about what's going on. Like these guys are taking deals. They're all saying 10, 11, 12 million. They're not getting that. Saquon got it, and that's less than the rookie. Bijan Robinson, he's getting 13 this year. So I don't know what was on that Zoom call because Jonathan Taylor's still the only one really going. I think him and Josh Jacobs were still going strong, holding out. But I don't really. Zach Martin, Cowboys guard. He just got to up. His deal was supposed to be 13 and a half and 14 the next 2 seasons. It's now 18 over the next 2 seasons. So he got his money. He's okay with it. He's like, look, I don't want 30. I don't want 50, but I don't want what it was 13, 40, 27. So they said, let's meet in the middle, man. 40. How about 36 to 40? 36 million. Here you go. 2 years guaranteed, 18 and 18. Is that good enough? Sure, I'll come play. So that's what I always wonder, man, when I see these contracts and see these things, like this Dalvin Cook thing, it's going to have to be a season-long play out. We're going to have to see it play out to see what happens with this value. But I don't know. In your mind now, do you think the running back market is kind of now set at 5 to 6 million, where it's like running backs, you can no longer ask for 10 to 20 a year or 10 to 12 a year. Right. You're kind of set at 5 to 6 now because of what these top guys are doing.
Yeah, I think the precedence that has been set is that after that rookie contract and maybe a franchise tag, every single year after that is going to be a battle. Right. You're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get a 1-year contract. And then after this season, Zeke and Cook and Hunt, they're going to have to do it all again. They're going to have to be back on the market, trying to find a new team, and it's going to happen year after year. It's like no one wants to give the multi-year deal unless you're someone like Alexander Madison. I think he signed for 2 years, $8 million. And he had some tread left on the tires. He hadn't been too worn down on his previous contract. It's going to be a struggle year in and year out because the second contract to the running backs, the big 4-year, $60 million deal, that's a thing of the past. I think that it may have dried up, and it's going to be an annual struggle. And we might be going through this next year at this time, wondering, is Dalvin Cook going to sign with anybody? Because it might not be the Jets next year. It might be somebody totally different, depending on, again, how he does this year. If he looks really good, maybe there's more demand. And if Breece Hall outshines him, again, he might be struggling to find a team. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to get to Greg Coleman and the Hanging Around Johnson segment, but we have to pay some bills. We have a word from our sponsors.
Yeah, let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook and the awesome new promotion they have going on there. Do you like the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions? They're plus 600 to win the Super Bowl again. Well, maybe you put that bet down on the Chiefs Super Bowl future. Well, every time the Chiefs win this year, you're going to get bonus bets in return. That applies to the Bills. It applies to the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Texans. You place a Super Bowl future bet, you get bonus bets every time that team wins along the way during the season. And you can put those bonus bets on anything: spreads, player props, over-unders, myriad ways to wager at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So go to the website, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get started with this promotion or other great promotions at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon. The FanDuel Sportsbook app works as well. Safe, secure, easy to use. FanDuel, make every moment more.
Well, now it's time for the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, and this is a fun one for me. I love when I get a chance to sit down with Greg Coleman, just because I look back to pictures from like 2013, 2014, at the Metrodome, 2012, 11, and Greg Coleman. Every time I got a chance to come to the game, I met a group, Highline Constructions, the group. They are golfers in Greg's events. I actually did a Vikings event and met them the first time, but then I golfed with them with Greg Coleman as well. And these guys have been an integral part of just me being a part of golf. And then Greg Coleman has been a big part of my growth, the things I've been through. But then just another father. You know, my father passed away. It's always nice to have men like Greg, Tony Dungy, Mel Blunt, guys that I can just send a message to every once in a while. They're letting me know that I'm doing something right. And somebody that I can see as a father. So with no further ado, let me get Greg Coleman in here into the Hang Around Johnson segment. You know, I learned Greg early as I started to see more guys, you know, in the NFL, young guys pass away, man, and make sure that I always give guys their flowers, man. So I'm proud of you. I mean, you're a great punter. We know that. First black punter. That's some Black history stuff, man, and nobody can ever take away. But you're a father, man. You're a great father, and now you're a grandpa. Is it Pawpaw or what is it?
It's Big Papa.
Big Papa. You know, you're a grandpa as well. And so just watching you as a grandpa, as a father, seeing Greg Jr., you know, when I get a chance to golf with him and then your daughter, I could just see the love and how much they love being around you. So I take that into every day when I get a chance to be with my kids. I try to spend every waking moment. Like people always wonder, like, man, how come you don't go out? How come you don't come to the I'm like, man, look, I got 3-4 jobs. I got 2 kids and a wife. Like, I don't have free time, and I'm fine with it. Like, my wife knows that. Like, I'm a homebody. I don't mind being at home, but I will say, man, yourself, Tony Dungy, Mel Blunt, man, you guys have been great father figures in the absence of my dad when he passed away, but just watching you guys operate. So I wanted to give you your flowers, man. If nobody can ever say I didn't say it, it's on tape. I put it out there, man. You're a great guy. But speaking of another man, you know, like in the NFL, as I've been a part of your events, I've been a part of the NFL golf events for years now. Like I said, dating back to 2012, I'm starting to feel, it's almost like year 10, 11 for us. But when I first started golfing with you guys, man, it was all about fun and celebration and this. And then the last like 2 years has been celebration of life, like comments and remembering guys that passed away the year before. And now you add another one in Bud Grant. You told so many Bud Grant stories, man. But when he passed away, like what's one thing you want everybody or wanted everybody to remember about Bud Grant?
Man, from a football perspective, Bud would never get beat on technicalities or not being prepared in terms of preparation. You've heard the saying, Ron, when the test is given, the teacher is quiet. And Bud would prepare us during the course of the week with everything imaginable. We had a list called What It Takes to Win, and we would go down that list and talked about what it was going to take on offense, defense, special teams. Jerry Burns picked up that same mantra and used it during his tenure as head coach of the Vikings. And one thing that Bud always reminded me of is he said, Touch, this is a business. And he said, if you need any more reminder, is when we moved from Old Met Stadium to the Metrodome. And then the next phase 2 was the building of Winter Park. Now, I'm going to share a story that a lot of people may find crazy because this was the NFL. Back before we had a facility, during the winter months when the tarp was on the field at Old Metropolitan Stadium, we would get on a bus and drive around the city and try to find a park that didn't have a whole heck of a lot of snow.
Wow.
And we would take shovels and brooms and sweep off part of that field to practice.
Wow.
And then we would get back on the bus, come back to Old Midway Stadium because that's where the locker rooms were and all of those things. And then we would go home.
Wow.
When we built Winter Park, because practices were very short. I was out of practice maybe about 2:30, 3 o'clock during the course of the week. And that include heavy days, goal line, all of those things. I'd be done by 3 o'clock. And when we built Winter Park, we were standing out, and he told me, he said, Touch, he said, football as we knew has changed forever. I said, what do you mean, bud? He said, the early practices that we had and all of those things. He said, well, those are things of the past. I said, why? He said, you see this $1 million facility that they just built? And this was back in 1982, 83, somewhere when Winter Park was built. He said, all of these executives, Mike Lynn included, they're going to want to see somebody in these buildings, somebody using the weight rooms and all of those other things. And he wasn't lying. And I saw the game shift to more of a streamlined business.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck with me more than anything else. And he would always say, Touch, handle your business. Handle your business. He said, I can get anybody to come out and put on a helmet and a jersey to play football. We're not paid to play football. We're paid to win. And when we don't win, changes will come. Man, we had so many private and personal conversations, Ron, some that will take both of us to our graves. But Bud was Bud. He too treasured his time with family. Mm-hmm. He too treasured his time with getting away from the game. He said, sometimes you just got to get away from it. That's why he enjoyed hunting and fishing and all of those things. He was never a golfer. And I don't know. He played cribbage, him and Zamberletti and all of those things. But I could look at him and all of the things that he had going on. He always made time for his kids. And I too, my family made unbelievable sacrifices. Mm-hmm. My kids had to share me with other kids. And now that we're adults, we come back full circle and we have conversation about that. So now that's why in this last part of the journey, I'm going to spend as much time as I possibly can. I know I could still be doing the broadcast and all of those things, but Eleanor and I were talking, and God has given us some remarkable journey. We've got some unbelievable journey behind us. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to make sure that the journey that's in front of us, that we did it at our pace. We danced to our own music, and we danced to our own drummers. And that's why we dropped the mic on the broadcast, sold everything in Minnesota, moved back to Jacksonville so that we could nurture family. My mom, my brother, we lost my mom a couple of years ago. But man, it's what you do. That's what family is. Mm-hmm. Because I applaud you for spending as much time as you do with your family. See, you can't get those hours back.
Right.
You cannot get that time back. So I applaud you as a young father and a young family man to treasure those times, man, because when they're gone, they are gone. And before you know it, those girls are going to be out of the house with their own families, living their own lives. And you just hope and pray that they allow you to be a part of it, because that's no guarantee. But man, we are so blessed. But I know Shawnee's going to make sure that doesn't happen. I know that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, because we deal with her parents and my mom, and so we are big on like I noticed that too at my age. We try to do a yearly trip, with our family. My daughter just went to Colorado and played in a big time softball tournament. She was recently kind of listed as an All-American for next season for 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. So I know we're already kind of prepping family for that. Like if she makes this All-Star team or this All-American team or whatever and gets to travel to Oklahoma to play, represent Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, I think is the Section 8 is what we're considered, or Tier 8, whatever it is down here in this area. But, all that stuff, we're our family is like, oh, let us know when she's playing. We want to come out and see. So it's been fun, but I will say I've learned a lot from you guys. And I know even like when my dad would come back for the arrives with the guys, that was the one thing, like the stories about that. And then Mel Blount would talk about Greg Coleman, as the punter and oh, that Coleman guy, he's up there, isn't he? I remember him as a, so I loved those stories. Like when I was younger, I'm not gonna lie, I told Mel Blunt this because he was on the show a while back. And I was like, when I was 18, 17, 16, I don't think I took it for granted. Not gonna lie, I did, and that's why I don't do that anymore. And that's why I'm glad my daughter doesn't take it for granted that she gets to, meet Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, and she went to CJ Ham's house, and she appreciates it. I don't think as a football player, because I was already a kid and a football player, I didn't appreciate that. I told somebody else that I'm like, man, I sat on the sideline of Michigan versus Minnesota. Lynn Swann was the broadcaster for ABC. And I just waved at him because he yelled out my nickname, which, I'm not ashamed to say it now. My nickname was Pookie. Okay. So I knew if somebody yelled out Pookie, they had to know me as a baby or a kid. Right, and I'm like, so I hear somebody yelling out Pookie, but I'm in Michigan. So I'm thinking like, it's my family. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah. I realized like into the game, I'm like, wait, that's Lynn Swann. So I do go over there and say what's up. And he felt old. He's like, man, I can't believe you're in college now. And I remember you were born. But like interactions like that, I don't think I ever, I didn't take advantage of that. Like I didn't try to take a picture or sit down and talk to Lynn after the game. I was just like, hey, we just played Michigan. All right, I'm getting on the bus. Good to see you again. And but now I do. Now when I get to talk to Donnie Shell and Tony and yourself and Mel Blunt and Lynn, because he was at USC, even Ray Anderson, who was the vice president of NFL, was at, Arizona State. Like I take those conversations now for what they are. Like I even, talking to Paul Krause, because Paul Krause, when he's on the sideline, he talks about my dad because they were both DBs and blah, blah. And, he talks. So I love these conversations now. Like I got to talk to Randall McDaniel at training camp last week. Even at the night practice.
Let me interrupt you one moment, because you just pricked the heartbeat of what this fraternity is about. I was in Canton last week prior to coming to Minnesota for the induction of Ken Riley, who was one of my mentors, one of my teachers. I had Ken Riley as a homeroom teacher in high school for a couple of years prior to going to the NFL. I was drafted by Cincinnati. I drove to training camp with Ken Riley. And to see last week, Tony, and having conversation with Mel and Donnie and all of those guys up in Canton last week, Ron, those memories are so valuable, because sooner or later, you'll come to realize and understand that all we have are moments and memories. And that's at a certain point in life, you understand that that's what we're making for our kids. That's what's going to be built on our legacy. So I applaud you early. I'm giving you your flowers too, bro, to take advantage of that. You're creating those memories, and the legacy of the Johnson family will live on forever, because I know that you've shared some of these stories with your daughters, with your wife, and now they're beginning to understand because they are a part of legacy. So, man, you just hit a home run for me.
Well, appreciate it. Well, one thing I want to make sure I hit on too. You talked about spending other time with other people's kids and doing all this stuff. You partnered with the YMCA, the UYMCA, a long time ago with the Greg Coleman Foundation, and now you have a golf tournament, benefiting kids. It's up in Bunker Hills. When this airs tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, we'll be on the course by the time it actually hits the presses. I'll probably be 14 under by that time.
Yes, you will, because
myself. My Highline Construction guys get the ball. I give them that. I put some drives out there for them, but they do have one guy that's I think he's a 4 handicap or 5 handicap, so he puts it close. So I know at some point we'll be close. I don't know. Usually we're always 12, 13 under. The NFL went about the same, and then we get some strokes.
Right.
But you spent a lot of time after sports. Like a lot of guys retire, and they don't. Like I see Chad Greenway still do it. So I don't know if this is a Minnesota thing or what. But I don't see a lot of Detroit Lions, still doing charity work. You see some, but not a lot. But you guys, man, in Minnesota, especially the Vikings, but yourself, you've continued to grow your foundation. You continue to grow your golf event to benefit kids. Explain a little bit about your heart and why you continue to do that.
Well, I was a Y kid myself. Growing up down in Jacksonville, Florida, the Y is where I learned how to swim, where I learned the fundamentals of teamwork, where I understood sportsmanship, all of those things. So I'm a benefactor of the YMCA. So all I'm doing is try to give back just a little bit to young people in this community, that if they can gain just half of what I gained by being a Y kid, it will serve them for the rest of their lives. It's part of my core values. My dad told me 3 things. He said, son, if you take these with you, it'll serve you well. Just say thank you, please, and how can I help you? And that's a fundamental, universal core of what's kept me grounded, because we all are standing on the shoulders of somebody else, regardless of whether it's in sports, whether it's in business or broadcasting or whatever lot in life you choose. Somebody else paved the way. And all I'm trying to do is pave the way for my kids and my grandkids and their grandkids, because we all need help. And the services that the Y has provided in this community has been incredible. Ron, there were kids that started this program many, many years ago. Tomorrow, this tournament will be our 24th year.
Wow.
And we now have young people who have gone through the programs of the Y, who are now executives in the YMCA. So we have seen the fruits of our labor, the investments that the community is having. We have some great partners with TSR Injury Law, SICK, US Delta Airlines, the Minnesota Vikings, Medica. The list goes on and on and on. Steve Terry, our presenting sponsor at TSR Injury Law. Steve was a Y kid. People ask, Steve, why do you do this? He said, you know what? Had not been for the Y, and he'll tell you this himself, there's no telling where I might be. I definitely wouldn't have this amazing law practice here in the Twin Cities, face on billboards all over the place. But his dad saw fit to get him in the Y. His dad was a supporter of the UY program as well. So, Ron, if you help somebody may not be in a position to help you, but they'll be in a position to help somebody else who might be in a position to help you. So you never know where the favor of God is going to come full circle. So that's why we do what we do. Eleanor grew up right down the street from that same YMCA on the north side of Jacksonville. So we know, and she being an educator, know what it meant to give kids and young people the opportunity to succeed, whether it's on or off the field. Most kids who play sports, who go through the sports programs, they won't sniff an NFL career or any professional sports. But man, can they be productive citizens in this community? Absolutely. And that's all we're trying to do.
Well, I want to ask you a question about your position. You play punter in the NFL. The direction of the NFL right now, kick returners are in jeopardy because they're talking about now you can just fair catch these kickoffs and get it to the 25 like college football. So true kick returners are like Devin Hester made a comment about that. Like he's like, if it wasn't for, being able to kick return, I wouldn't be in the NFL. Bernard Berrien came on the show, said the same thing. He's like, man, if he said I was a good receiver at Fresno State, but kick return made me a 3rd round pick. And the reason why the Chicago Bears wanted me, the reason why the Minnesota Vikings gave me money to come to Minnesota. And so a lot of guys who were true kick returners, but also maybe that added value to their careers changing. Now you talk about the punt. Now they're saying some of these punts are dangerous. Some of this stuff is dangerous. Kickoffs are dangerous. What are your thoughts on how and again, this is going to take a ton of votes, a ton of stuff, time to change. But what do you think about owners trying to like make this on 4th down instead of punting? We're just going to give you a chance to throw a 4th. I forgot what the rule is. Sam knows it, but it's like, I think you get like a 4th and 15 opportunity or something instead of onside kicking, and then punting. Now they're talking about that too. Like maybe you can do this and then ball moves to their 30. It's all these weird rules they're thinking about. But what are your thoughts on that as they try to say like, well, maybe special teams guys, instead of that, we have an additional receiver, another running back. What are your thoughts on that?
With all due respect, most owners have never strapped up a helmet, have never put on a jersey, and really don't understand the game. They understand the business side of football.
Right.
But the game itself is shifting to a point where it's not going to be the game that we knew, the game that we played, the game that we grew up on. Yes, it is a dangerous game. We all take that risk and the responsibility. We know that. But the other side, there's nothing like football, Ron. There's nothing like being on a team. There's nothing like being in a locker room. There's nothing like being in an NFL huddle. If you've never been in the middle of the field in an NFL huddle, that you're so close that you know what each other had for a pregame meal, that's brotherhood, man. There's nothing like that. But the game is going away from that. I understand the safety points. I get it. But sooner or later, you're going to make the game so plastic that it's going to lose the true sportsman, the true person that really loves the game. Now, you're making dinosaurs, as you mentioned, out of guys like Cordell Patterson, Devin Hester, Winnie Wong-Woo, who's got 3 in the first couple of years. It's going to be different. I hate the fair catch rule on kickoffs. Can I be transparent? Can I be honest?
Of course, always.
The things that really tick me off about some of these competition committees, whenever they want to shift the game, they pick on special teams. They move the kickoff back. They move the goalpost back. You know, you can't do this. You can't do that. It's easy to pick on special teams. Okay, if you're going to do something, hell, I don't know what you're going to do, but just leave the kickers and punters alone.
No, because in games, I remember like the I forgot what we called it, but it was like almost like a pooch kickoff where you try to like get it inside the one, so they have to return it. And they can't just down it. And then if they make a mistake and don't catch it, it might bounce out at the one. So they kind of have to like, you know, it's 50-50 chance. If you let it drop and it goes to the end zone, great. But if that thing takes a weird bounce because the kicker has put it, you know, on the tee a little bit different and try to kick it to the 5 or the 10 and kick it high, like that's a lot of the strategy that they're trying to take out the game. And you're right. Yeah.
It's skill. They are taking the skill away from punters and kickers who have worked their entire lives to find an advantage. You know, I had this flutter kick. You know, Ray Guy hit it high and long. Reggie Roby hit it high and long. Well, I had a flutter kick that it depended on my drop. I would get it up and it would float and it would turn to the side and it would float. Wouldn't get a whole lot of height, but it would just hang in the air. And then it would take that bounce to the right and bounce out of bounds. You know, they just always screwing with the punters and kickers, man. So let's talk about somebody else before I say a bad word. I can't take back.
Well, last one before we get out of here, man. Culture is the big word now around football. Deion Sanders just came out and said, culture, I don't need a culture. I'm a winner. We're going to win, and that's my culture. I don't know if that's sustainable long-term, but when his son's at quarterback and his nephew's at cornerback, or sorry, his son's at quarterback, his other son's at safety, his other nephew's at nickel, he's got his whole family basically, you know, his daughter, which I love. Like, I'm all for it. If you can get your family and put them on, and they're actually good. I mean, let's be real. His one son was at South Carolina. His other nephew was at Alabama. So these ain't like Rudy Poo family members. These is like the best of the best that didn't want to go to Jackson State. But now they're like, hey, Uncle at Colorado. Like, let's go to Colorado, man. We Power 5 now. We about to be on TV. We going to the SEC. So when you look at Colorado, and that's Deion's comments, and then you go to PJ Fleck. Of course, I got the Ohr behind me. His culture is family. Forget about me. I love you. Then you look at some other programs like Nick Saban. That's like, look, it's my way or the highway, but it works for him because he's winning national championships. When you see Kevin O'Connell come in and he's building this culture of like, you know, kind of like Tony Dungy. It's family. It's laid back. It's relaxed. You got people. But Tony Dungy always had that, well, you only won one Super Bowl. You know, you couldn't really get over the hump after the, you know, Peyton Manning did this for you. Do you think Kevin O'Connell can long-term, that can be the culture in today's youth? Because today's youth is all about this. It's all about, you know, access. I can tweet out my emotions. The minute you piss me off, I can jump on here and tell the world you made me mad. But do you think that's going to work for, well, one, Deion, and then do you think it's going to continue to work for the Minnesota Vikings and Kevin O'Connell?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the shift that was made in the atmosphere last year when Kevin came in, he and Kwesi, the first thing that they had to do was shift the culture. I was talking with some folks, one or two confidants that I shared that I was going to retire prior to the change in the new coach. I said, Greg, hang around. There's going to be a new culture. There's going to be a new coach. There's going to be a new. I didn't want my decision to be based on who's going to be in those seats of leadership, because I knew whoever it was had to shift the culture, had to shift the atmosphere. And Kevin has come in. He's almost like a Pied Piper. And if you listen to him long enough, you'll believe him. It reminds me of Sam Rutigliano when he came into Cleveland many, many years ago. After Art Modell fired Forrest Gregg, he came in with a shift of culture. And it was in your face, but it was, man, I love you. Together we can do so many remarkable things. And if you believe the words that are coming out of his mouth, man, belief is so powerful. Words are so powerful. So yes, I do believe that Kevin has shifted this culture and can continue, because he showed what happened if you adjust, adapt, and execute a different game plan. They were what, 13-5 last year?
Yep, 13-4. Yep. Well, yeah, 5. They lost the playoff game. Yep, yeah. 5. They lost the playoff game.
So the proof is in the pudding. What Dion is selling, as long as his players buy it, that's all that matters. True. What Tony Dungy was selling back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, his teams bought it.
True.
So it depends on who the salesman is, and it depends on who the coach is. If guys can see truthfulness, and if they can trust and respect that coach, sky's the limit. In the same way for this Minnesota Viking team. But I will say this, you can have a great culture all you want. I know horse owners had a great culture, but they never won the Kentucky Derby. You cannot win the Kentucky Derby with shuttling ponies. You got to have quarter horses. You got to have guys who can, understand, who can split the helmet of a running back, a wide receiver, or offensive lineman. You got to have talent. You don't win in this league without talent. I look forward to the Minnesota Vikings having another successful year. I do believe that they will miss Dalvin Cook. I understand the business side of that. I thought Cookie was the straw that stirred that offensive drink. Kirk Cousins, tremendous quarterback, good numbers. JJ, all world. But again, it takes all 53. And if all 53, like PJ talked about, that oar that you've got, that every oar in the water is rowing in the same direction. That's all culture is, Ron.
Yeah. Well, if people want to know more about the Greg Coleman golf event, just go, you can Google Greg Coleman golf event. It pops up on the YMCA website, but you can go to ymcanorth.org and you can see the Greg Coleman Celebrity Golf Tournament Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. You can still go on there if you want to donate, if you want to check out the live auctions, because I know there's going to be some live auction items as well. But there's a beautiful picture of Greg and Eleanor on the website. There's TSR injury law with Greg Coleman. There's all the volunteers. There's autographs. And at the bottom, there's a link for auction. You click that, it's going to take you to all the items. So as they get closer to the event, they will have the auction items go live. It's not live right now because they don't want people to get ahead of us who actually are going to show up in golf. But please go to this. And also, if you ever want to golf in the event, you can also go in here and get more information. But the 2023 auction will be available as soon as the tournament kicks off. When that first person signs up, that auction is going to open up. So you're going to want to see that. I mean, Greg knows everybody. So you know there's going to be some pictures, some autograph stuff, maybe Muhammad Ali gloves. I don't know. There's always some great items.
Here's one that I got to tell you about.
Okay.
And there are only 12 of these in the entire world. We talked about Bud Grant, my former coach. There is a autographed jersey and photographs of Bud with his signature. It's already framed. It looks incredible. I may even bid on it myself. So that's going to be one that's going to be on the live auction as well.
All right. Make sure you guys check that out. Like I said, this will air tomorrow. So as you're hearing it now, it's probably 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Golf tournament is going to kick off at around 11 a.m. So that auction is going to go throughout the tournament, people. So you have all day to jump on there. If you want to get some Vikings memorabilia, because I know you guys have those man caves down there, please just go to ymcanorth.org. Also, remember, people, SiriusXM is a proud partner of Locked On Sports Minnesota. The Minnesota Twins are playing my Detroit Tigers tomorrow, 6:40. If you want to catch every pitch tonight, Tuesday, every pitch, the Twins Tigers. Just go to the SXM app, and you can just search Minnesota Twins by joining the SiriusXM app. Also, you can get Locked On Sports Minnesota on there as well. Well, we got the Daily 3 coming up next. That's 3 questions. We're going to take about a minute each because we spent a lot of time with Greg today, but we'll be back after this. Well, I don't know about you, Sam, but I love those stories from Greg Coleman and Bud Grant. Like it's one of those things that reminds me of just how historic the Minnesota Vikings program is. And then also, like I said, the community stuff that Greg and Chad Greenway and guys in this town do. Feels like Minnesota is always going to be Minnesota nice off the field as well. On the field, hope they get a little mean. But it's time for the Daily 3. 3 questions. We take about 30 seconds each because Greg Coleman, we had to spend some time with him today. So take it away, Sam.
All right, Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com, he put together his top 50 free agents for next free agency period in 2024. There are 3 Vikings on the list, and you might be able to name them. Danielle Hunter, TJ Hawkinson, Kirk Cousins. Maybe Hawkinson signs that extension. We don't know, but he is on the list. Of those 3, Ron, which one do you think is highest in the top 50? Hawkinson, Cousins, or Hunter?
Highest on the list?
Highest on the list. So in order of best free agents for next offseason.
I'm gonna say Kirk Cousins.
It is Danielle. Danielle is number 5 on the list. Number 5. Kirk Cousins is number 10. TJ Hawkinson is number 37. What do you think of those rankings?
I like the rankings as this was going to happen because they kind of know where they stand now. Because this stuff comes, we need content. This stuff comes out for a reason. But the fact that TJ knows he's 33, I feel like he's more likely to sign with the Vikings and re-sign like during the season at some point, maybe, or get an extension. I feel like Kirk Cousins is then next because of like who else needs a quarterback. Now, maybe the Cardinals. I mean, you could look at something. I don't know if he wants to go play for that coach. Explosive. You're explosive.
You're fast.
You're fast. Like, what? You're fired. Like, I saw that. If I was the owner and I saw that, I'd be like, all right, let's start over again. Who else is out here? But if you think about Kirk Cousins, I think he would be next. And then I think of value because Danielle Hunter knows I'm one of the top 5 free agents for 2024. I got to get paid, baby. I got to get paid. So I think Danielle would be the least likely to re-sign unless the Vikings backed up the Brinks truck, which they can't because they have to go get Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, I think Danielle Hunter, I would see him going to a 4-3 team in his next contract, his next stop. Will he be looking for a 4-3 opportunity? Because I don't think he's a true 3-4 outside linebacker.
All right, friend of the show, Gophers safety, Tyler Newman. He is on the preseason Chuck Bednarik watch list that is awarded to the best defensive player in college football. It's obviously a big task to win that award, but Tyler Newman is in the mix. What do you expect from Tyler Newman this year, and do you think he could put up defensive player of the year type numbers?
So this is where I'd say the program now has reached a level of which people are paying attention. You see the number of guys that have gone to the NFL. You see the Antoine Winfields in the NFL succeeding. You see the Tanner Morgans with the Steelers taking pictures with the guy came on our show. I'm drawing a blank. Keith. So you think about all these guys out there right now. You see Boye Mafe and Aseze Itame who changed jerseys after the Seahawks-Vikings game. Minnesota has elevated because now these GMs and people are seeing this. These voters are seeing this. Tyler Newman's built like a Greek god. He has the speed and the ability to make catches in the back of the end zone, back across the field. You see him at practice recently, literally ball hawking, go all the way across the field and steal a ball. So, yes, I think he could be. I think, what we'll see is you'll see him up for the top DB award. You'll see him up for the top defensive player award. I don't know if he can win both because I know sometimes, they try to figure that out. Like, well, he wins the best DB, then this guy should win the defensive player. If he wins the defensive player, then let's have this guy win the DB, which doesn't make sense, but I know it's happened before. But yeah, I can see Tyler Newman up there making those plays because when you look at the way this team is built, he's going to be now a true leader captain back there. He's going to be the guy. He could have went to the NFL this year. But his grade probably wasn't high enough to feel like, well, I got another year, might as well come back and try to be a first rounder, which I think he will now. Like if he has a decent year after everybody seeing Antoine Winfield, knowing what Tyler Newman's size is, like he's like a J-Ron Curse, but he has a better ceiling right now. And that's where I think people are seeing that. The size, the big nickel ability for him to come in the box and make tackles, like he's built, strong. So yeah, I could see him making those plays to win that.
All right, last one. Ron, you'll be shocked about this, but
Yeah, I saw
I
this.
have I have seen The Blind Side.
Oh,
Have you seen The Blind Side?
Of course, Sam.
All right, you've seen The Blind Side. We both have seen The Blind
Numerous
Side.
times. I'm a Sandra Bullock fan, so of course.
Me too. I like Sandra. Miss Congeniality.
Exactly. That was the first movie, I think. Well, Speed. So I saw Speed. Did you see Speed?
No.
See, there you go.
I've seen The Proposal.
Okay, with what's his name?
Yeah,
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I
Reynolds.
like that one too.
I was confusing him with Gosling. All right, so Michael Oher, subject of the Blind Side movie, heartwarming film. He's alleging that the Toohey family tricked him into a conservatorship, not an adoption. They never adopted him, apparently. They just signed him, like the Britney Spears situation. They signed him to a conservatorship for financial gain, made millions off the movie, or didn't make a dime. How stunning is this allegation to you?
Not stunning at all. Money is the root of all evil. People historically have done this to those lesser than. At that moment, he was lesser than. He didn't know what he was doing. They did take care of him. But at the same time, people, if he was 5'10", 125 pounds, I don't think anybody would have been trying to get him in that school. I don't think anybody would have cared about where he lives. The dad that was the janitor at the school, I think is kind of how they told the story. Like his son, that was his friend. And they played basketball together because we saw, he was a basketball player too. But other than that, that was it. It kind of had that. And I know you haven't seen Shooting Stars with LeBron James, but that was a similar type of situation where the dad was the coach and his son was on the team, and then LeBron's friends were just all friends with him. And then, of course, LeBron started to grow, even though they all stayed together. But LeBron became the guy. It started off as the coach's son was the guy because he could shoot. He was really good, and he was good. But LeBron getting a 6'8" was just like, whoa, this is the best guy in the country. Michael Oher, similar. Like if he was just a little 5'10" guy out there just shooting baskets with the coach's friend, they might have got him in there, but I don't think they would have even thought about like getting all that. Like when you see a guy 6'6", 280 pounds or whatever he was, like 300 pounds in high school. Yeah, like you do see an opportunity like this guy could be really good. And then you get him on the field, because if you think about the way the movie was portrayed, once they got him on the field is when they then said, let's adopt him. They didn't adopt him out the gate. They adopted him after they saw how good he was going to be, and all the coaches started to show up, and then they bought him a truck and blah, blah. And so I think there's always truth in a lie. There's always some truth in a lie. If you see the lie, you got to find where the truth is. And so that movie, if it's a lie, there is some truth in there. The timeline probably happened the way it happened, but they probably had to make it seem a little bit better, because you can't say, hey, we signed a convert. Like, could you imagine Sandra Bullock, like, hey, sign this piece of paper? And then later, like, I can't wait for the 30 for 30 of this or Netflix special of this. Because Michael Oher is attacking now. So now the next step is for him to sit down with Netflix or ESPN or somebody and do this actual story talking about that, because I think the family each got $225,000 and the kids. Michael Oher, nothing. So the fact that Hollywood even did that, like, hey, you're selling us this kid's story, but we're not paying him, fine. Like they worked out a $900,000 deal and Michael Oher didn't get any of it. Their kids got $225,000 and they did nothing. And then the husband and wife got $225,000. They set their family up. They weren't worried about Michael Oher. And then when you think about, and because he had already made it to the NFL, so maybe they were just like, oh, he doesn't need the money. Are you lying? Are you kidding me? Anybody needs $225,000. Stop doing that. But then when you think about how that all played out, I could see that. Like, he's a young kid. He doesn't know what he's signing. He didn't even know his birth, stuff. He didn't have a birth certificate. His mom didn't know. So there's truth in the lie. Some of that stuff probably is true. She probably did go down there to figure out, like, if she could, maybe she did go see if she could adopt him or not. But clearly, maybe they were like, well, here's the easiest way to do it real fast. You can get a conservatorship. And now you guys are responsible for making decisions for him going to college and all that stuff. I think that's kind of how it happened. And maybe when they first signed the deal, they weren't even thinking about the money side of it. They were thinking about, we're going to be your guardians in this situation to make sure you end up at the right college and, get all your stuff done and get you a license, because that was part of it too. We want to get you a license. That maybe is some truth to it. So maybe he did sign that. Like, hey, sign this paper. We're going to adopt you. We're going to have control over everything you do, not realizing the future benefit. I don't think they started off malicious. I think eventually when they saw the benefit of it, it became malicious. And that's where I think I don't think it was right away like, oh, we can take advantage of this kid. I just think eventually they realized, like, oh, wait, we own his rights still. Like, this is we're over his estate. Let's do it. Let's do a movie. This kid has a lot to offer. So, yeah, I don't think it was initially that, because I did find it weird. Like, after he made it to the NFL, you stopped seeing like pictures of him with the Tuohys, and you stopped seeing him like, hanging out with them. And, there was no more pictures after the fact online. And because you would think they would be at like Ravens games and would get blown up. And no, there was none of that. So I figured at that point something wasn't right, but I didn't even realize what it was. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, what's stupid is that I think they were already a wealthy family, right? Like it's not like they didn't have a dime and were trying to get rich quick. I think they were already rich. So to take advantage of someone in his situation just to get a little more money, that sucks. And then it sounds like, too, he was cut out of all say in this movie.
Correct.
From a production standpoint. And from the article, it sounds like this movie was actually damaging to his reputation because he was perceived by teams as not intelligent or raw. And that hurt his career, or hurt the longevity of his career. I think it only lasted about 7 years, Ron. I don't think he played that long for a first-round pick. So that's unfortunate, too. He probably lost out on a lot of earnings in the NFL because of that. And it's just a messy situation. Hard to believe that it went on for 10 years, 15 years without him realizing this sort of clerical, conservatorship deal. But that's absolutely wild. I hope that it gets rectified.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, when you look at what they're saying and what they're doing and how it's going, that was the point. I think they wanted him to not have control of the movie because he probably would have told a little bit more truth. And it would have been Hollywood-ish. And so I think when they kind of started doing the movie, they're like, look, we got to change this for Hollywood. We got to make this look like this. We got to change this to look like this. How can we make this exciting? How can we make this fun? So I think there's some truth to a lot. Like, there's some truth in there, but they also had to make it up for Hollywood. And hey, it is what it is. It sucks. And, hopefully he gets his, because it looks like he's suing them for a lot. I mean, the movie did $300 million. So, and they got 2.5% of the proceeds. So who knows what the actual gross proceeds were, or the net proceeds were, or whatever they deemed the proceeds were. Because I know Hollywood said it cost this, and this was our, but because then like it was a big budget film. Like, it wasn't like they lose a bunch of studio. Like, they used a house in somebody's neighborhood. They used a school.
Yep.
They used a football field. Like, that was really it. It wasn't a ton of like, they used a car and they drove down the street. Like, if you think about the scenes. And there was a couple houses in the projects. They didn't use a big time movie set and pyrotechnics and Tom Cruise jumping off of a mountain with a motorcycle. Like, they didn't do all that. So I think that was, I guarantee I might have to look that up, what the budget was.
I just looked it up. It grossed $309 million on a $29 million budget. Exactly. So my math says that's $280 million profit.
Told you. It was very cheap. Whereas Tom Cruise's movie, I think the budget was like $100 million. And it's expected to do billions for Mission Impossible. Like, not billion, sorry, $1 billion. But yeah, $100 million, like all that stuff, the pyrotechnics and the CGI, there was no CGI. There was no like, boom, $29 million. That's just crew, couple houses, couple cars. Because they had to crash a car, so that was probably part of it. How do we crash these two cars? And they got Ford, probably was a sponsor, because how Ford tough that thing was. And man, if it was in the other car, he wouldn't have made it. Like, Ford's like, hey, throw us in there, F-150, we'll do it. Like, that's where I'm thinking, like, it wasn't a ton of money put into this film, and they made, like you said, $280 million. Who knows what else was in that, like paying the crew, paying some other people, but let's just call it $200 million. $80 million went to everybody else, $200 million profit. They end up, let's say, of that $200 million, they end up getting their 2.5% for their family, and Michael Oher saw none of that. And that's where I think that's the problem, is that $5 million. $5 million is 2.5% of that 200 million. Let's just call it that. But it might be even more than that. I'm being generous saying 200 million. It might be more than that. And Sandra Bullock won an Oscar or an Emmy or something for that too. So yeah, they owe Michael Oher some money, and so we'll see what happens. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Mex. I want to thank you guys for joining. Thanks for those that download on YouTube. Thanks for those that have watched us on Amazon Fire and Roku. Please go to your apps if you have it and search Locked On Sports Minnesota, SXM Radio app. We are very appreciative. Please make sure you search Locked On Sports Minnesota on the XM Radio app as well, and then wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, as these games go on, every Monday now, we're going to break down the game. So there's a game Saturday versus the Tennessee Titans. There's another game Saturday, the next Saturday, versus Arizona Cardinals. we will break that down. And we're going to do some state fair stuff. I think one of these roundtables, we're going to do some state fair talk, food, whatever.
We have to.
5 food at the state fair. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Because the Minnesota State Fair, I've heard, because I've been to Iowa's, I've been to Michigan's. I heard Minnesota's is the best in the world. So we'll have to make sure we let you guys know about that. Maybe I'll get some footage too to give to Sam, because we have the PJ Flex show coming up down there. So maybe I'll get some behind the scenes footage of the State Fair, the PJ Flex show, get Sam to post that on in the middle of one of our episodes, like a 2-minute cut in for you guys to see me shooting it at the State Fair. But again, I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Maxwell. Thank you guys and have a great day.